From Ichigo performing Bankai for the first time in Soul Society, to his final get-to-get Tensho against Aizen in Fate Karakura, and his final battle against Yuha in the 1000-Year Blood War. There is no doubt that Bleach has many great moments in amazing arcs. But out of the entire series, the Fullbring arc is easily the most overlooked arc in the entirety of Bleach. And I think that we should reconsider how we view this arc, because I genuinely believe that it is one of the best arcs in Bleach, and influenced how Kubo would structure the following arc, the 1000-Year Blood War. The Fullbring arc takes place a year and a half after the defeat of Aizen and Ichigo losing his powers. I love the way this starts off as a more grounded story, similar to Substitute Shinigami, almost like a reintroduction to the way Bleach is going to be written from now on. Even the little intro panel from the beginning of Bleach is redone here, kind of like a sign of Ichigo starting fresh after losing his powers. I love how this arc feels like a more matured version of Substitute Shinigami. All anime and manga suffer from what I like to call EMS, or early manga syndrome, where the story starts out rough or has awkward character moments due to the story not being fully established yet. And if you need an example of what I mean, like, go read the first couple of chapters of Dragon Ball. Not Dragon Ball Z, early Dragon Ball. And you'll realize that some of this shit is extremely freaky, bro. But you'll notice that how Dragon Ball started out is nothing like how Dragon Ball Z and Super are today. We see Ichigo go through his daily life at school and we see him interact with his friends again, which I think is dope. Having screen time to Tatsuki, Keigo, and Mizuhiro is kind of cool. Especially after the events of the Arrancar saga, having Ichigo reveal his powers to them. And so now it doesn't feel like they're completely separated from his life. It feels much more personal to Ichigo because the story is revolving around his life outside of being a Shinigami. As wherever we see him being a Shinigami, everything revolves either around the villains of that said group or Soul Society. This arc also introduces his work as another aspect of his life, and his boss Ikumi plays somewhat of an older sister role to Ichigo for the little screen time that she has, which makes for some really wholesome moments in the Fullbring arc and even in 1000-Year Blood War. Despite her having like 10 minutes of screen time max, I thought she was a very, very good addition. Despite everything seeming normal, Ichigo, even though he doesn't show it, deeply misses being a Shinigami and feels a sort of loss and emptiness from being able to protect his friends and family. The conflict arrives in the form of Tsukishima, who seems to have attacked Uryu, hospitalizing him, and Ginjo, who provokes Ichigo by tempting him with the return of his powers. Things get tense when Tsukishima starts to attack Ichigo's friends one by one. This, in combination with Uryu's injuries and an incident where Yuzu gets put in danger because of a hollow, prompts him to accept Ginjo's invitation to execution. That whole segment there is what I believe to be an amazing start to the arc and a very good way of setting up Ichigo's goal and the main antagonist. The great thing about this arc is that it gives some spotlight to the side characters, which was a major issue for me in the Huecamondo saga. But let me talk about the main villains, Tsukishima and Ginjo. In my opinion, Tsukishima is such an underrated villain in Bleach, because despite not having an effect on the greater worlds of Bleach like Aizen or Yuha, he affects Ichigo's personal life, which we can see has just as much of a negative impact on Ichigo. A major part of Ichigo's self-esteem is rooted in him being able to protect others. So seeing Tsukishima basically threaten Yuzu, Karin, Ikumi, and his friends, and damn near being powerless to stop him, makes him panic, to the point where he contemplates on killing Tsukishima to protect everyone he cares about. Before this, we have never seen Ichigo get to this point ever for anyone, let alone a human person. But what really sets him over the edge is Ginjo. Ginjo is revealed to have been the one who actually attacked Uryu that day and pretended to be Ichigo's friend through Tsukishima's Fullbring book at the end. Ginjo's betrayal, followed by him taking Ichigo's Fullbring, leaving him powerless, completely destroys Ichigo to the point where we see him break down. Is this immediately followed by what he thinks is another betrayal from his own father and Kisuke, which causes him to almost completely give up. This is probably the lowest point that we see Ichigo so far, and seeing him so broken is what makes us relate to his pain. What makes this arc especially great is how it ends. Seeing that Rukia, with the help of everyone in Soul Society, be the one to return his Shinigami powers, symbolic of their first encounter in the Substitute Shinigami arc. At first, Rukia gives her powers to Ichigo for him to rescue her and his family, but this time Rukia being the one to return Ichigo's lost powers to rescue him and everyone else. I love the fight that happens between Ichigo and Ginjo and what they represent. Ginjo, having realized the truth, he harbors resentment towards Soul Society's deception, choosing to destroy them for it. And Ichigo, even though he was suspicious about Soul Society, he realized that he could still make a choice and chose his own path to protect, which means fighting against Ginjo. I like that Ichigo and Ginjo reflect opposing ideals, and how Ginjo questions his and Ichigo's morality during their fight. Had Ichigo been the first substitute Shinigami, would he have acted the same as him? Ichigo during their fight never criticizes Ginjo or tells him that he's wrong. I think he, more than anyone, could understand Ginjo's feelings and doesn't invalidate them at all, but he will still reject what he stands for. The best part is how he delivers his final thoughts on Ginjo to the captains and giving his reasons on why he wants to take Ginjo's body and bury him in the world of the living. It's not about forgiving or not forgiving. My friends or family are back to normal. I am alive, and he's just a deputy Soul Reaper. One way you could take this is as Ichigo declaring his alignment, saying that even though he fought against Ginjo, he did it for his own reasons, to protect his friends and family, and not as an order from Soul Society, because he understood that under different circumstances, he could have ended up the same way. This empathy is what leads him to make the choice to bury him in the world of the living so his soul can pass on. Ichigo knows that he was also used and almost killed by Soul Society, so he can relate to Ginjo being betrayed by them. Despite him being his enemy, he's still a person and deserves to be treated like a person, even in death. In a way, he's choosing to respect Ginjo's choice as a human, while also reminding Soul Society that he doesn't belong to them, which I think is a nice way to expand his role in Soul Society. Overall, I feel like this arc gets overlooked when people look back at the moments that make Bleach great. Fullbring was a good reset and a smooth lead into the following arc of Bleach, which takes a much grander approach while still having the influence of how Fullbring structures the story in terms of consistency with the plot and giving moments to the side characters that need it. All of that, in my opinion, is what makes this the most underrated arc of Bleach, and it's not even close.